Welcome back, everybody, to 31 1980s horror movies for Halloween, where I'm counting down my favorite horror movies from the 1980s. So we've gotten through the 20s and we're now in the teens, and at number 19 we have my absolute favorite George Romero movie, and that would be Creepshow. I can't help it. I absolutely love Creepshow. I do love the zombie movies, but for me, Creepshow is just so much fun. If I had to pick one of the most fun horror movies ever made, it would be Creepshow. This is another situation where it breaks my heart to put it so low on the list, but other movies beat it out, and it kind of sucks to say because Creepshow is just such a blast. And it's such a great combination. You have George Romero directing it, and the stories in this movie are based on stories by Stephen King, and you have Tom Savini doing the practical effects for this movie. Like, how can you go wrong? Creepshow is an anthology movie, and for me it is my favorite anthology movie. Not only is it my favorite anthology movie, but I'm going to go out of my way to say it is one of the best comic book movies ever made. Now, Creepshow is not based on any actual comic, but it was inspired by the old EC comics, the old horror comics, and it captures the feeling of a comic book perfectly. It captures the feeling of a comic book better than all these comic book movies we're getting nowadays.
If you can hold your breath.
So this is an anthology movie. It's a bunch of short segments put together in one film, and I love anthology movies, but anthology movies can go either way. If you have a bunch of different directors directing different segments and putting them in the same movie, the movie might seem a little off here and there. But when you have the same director directing all the segments, that can make a good anthology movie because all the segments can be good. All the segments will have the same quality because they're all directed by the same director. And so you have 5 segments in this movie, and they're all great. You have Father's Day, which is about this woman who killed her father years ago, and the father comes back from the grave demanding some Father's Day cake. You have The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, starring Stephen King, where this meteor comes to Earth, and on Jordy Verrill's farm, and he's this simple backwoods hick kind of guy, and the meteor causes vegetation to grow throughout his farm to the point where it's an epidemic.
What a...
Then you have Something to Tide You Over, which follows Leslie Nielsen as the villain, and he finds the man who's having an affair with his wife and buries him up to his neck on the beach as the tide's coming in.
You hear me, Richard? You hear me, Richard? I'm gonna get you!
Hold your breath there, Harry. Hold your breath.
Then you have The Crate, which is the longest segment of the movie, and everyone's favorite segment of the movie. That involves a college professor who finds a crate under the stairs that has this missing link, this sort of killer ape-like creature.
And I swear to God, if you ever touch
And then you have the final story, They're Creeping Up on You, which follows this rich agoraphobe named Upsid Pratt. He's a rich asshole, and as you would expect in an anthology movie, his apartment gets overrun with cockroaches.
I hope you die!
All the segments are great, but my favorite segment is actually Something to Tide You Over. Most people go with The Crate, and The Crate is great, but I love Something to Tide You Over because, one, Leslie Nielsen plays a fantastic villain. Everyone knows Leslie Nielsen for comedies, but he was such a great villain. He was a great villain here, and he was a great villain in Day of the Animals, which is a killer animal movie from the 1970s. It's just such a suspenseful segment because you have this guy buried up to his neck in sand as the tide's coming in, and Leslie Nielsen puts a TV there to show his wife, who this guy's been having an affair with, further down the beach, also buried up to her neck in sand, with the tide coming in.
You've got a chance here. If you don't lose your head now, it looks like she's losing hers, doesn't
Oh,
it?
God, no!
But again, this being a horror anthology, you know it's going to have a twisted supernatural ending. But all the segments are great, and the whole wraparound story being that it's a comic book, again, gives it that fun feel. Creepshow is a horror movie that I recommend to people just because it shows how much fun horror can be. The cover of the movie says, "The most fun you'll ever have being scared," and that's the truth. It's a perfect mixture of fun and horror. You know, you have these scary scenes, but they're in such a fun way that you just can't help but enjoy yourself.
Oh, God, Henry, what's wrong now?
Not a thing, Wilma. Everything's just fine.
I'm gonna flat out say that Creepshow is my favorite comic book movie, because again, more than any other comic book movie, it captures the essence of a comic book. You have these bright colors shown throughout this movie. Again, you have transitions done in this comic book panel way. If you're a comic book fan and you want to get into horror movies, I say watch Creepshow. I think you'll have a good time with it. Creepshow is one of my Halloween traditions. Every Halloween, I have to put in Creepshow. Just because, for me, an anthology movie screams Halloween. And the anthology movie that screams Halloween the most is Creepshow.